What's going on, guys? Welcome to the PrizePicks Pick Show here on Saturday. We've got lots of games. We've got WNBA, we've got PGA, and of course, MLB. And actually, I want to start talking about yesterday's slate of games. We had 3 strikeout picks. Pavetta, 4.5, Scherzer, 4.5, and Tristan McKenzie, 3.5. All 3 of them were cruising. Looked like they'd get there easily. Ended up with one shy of the number, which they had over a full inning before they ended up departing. Vettel was especially tilting. 4 scoreless and 4 strikeouts before he didn't even record an out in the 5th inning. Just everyone started ripping the ball off of him. It got me thinking, I had something like 150% ROI between PGA and MLB on PrizePicks and Underdog as of like a couple weeks ago. And I was just kind of feeling a little bit invincible. Like I could make any pick I wanted, and it would just, of course, end up hitting. And so one of my keys to the day is to pay a little bit more attention to each individual pick. Make sure not only do we have good 6-pick plays, but each individual pick that makes up that 6-pick play is also every bit as strong. Shout out to Zach, of course, because I wouldn't have been able to do that while building out a bunch of 6-pick plays today without his WNBA picks. He came through with 3 of them. So subscribers have already gotten 7 6-pick plays, I believe, and we'll have 1 6-pick play of the day that we'll talk through right away here on the show today. And then we'll talk through some of my other favorite MLB and PGA picks. There are 3 MLB picks that are part of every single 6-pick play that I have today. And one thing I was asked the other day, I think the exact quote, it was like 10 o'clock at night. The exact quote was, is tomorrow going to be a PrizePicks or an Underdog day? That's not how I decide. I don't just choose one or the other. Each morning, whether I go to PrizePicks or Underdog is the primary place of all of the plays. Some days obviously we're playing both, but it largely has to do with what is available on PrizePicks. So that's what we're going to go through here first. Where I start is in the outs tab. And what I'm looking for are pairings that we like to use where the correlation is fantastic. PrizePicks either doesn't penalize that or penalize it ever so slightly, whereas Underdog penalizes it a bunch. So if we have those correlated pairings that we love, we're more likely to play PrizePicks. So first place I go to is outs. I'm looking for less than on outs. You can also do a less than on fantasy points. We hit one of those the other day. I can't remember which pitcher it was. But it was a less than on outs. Oh, it was Yankee pitcher. Because it was Vlad Guerrero. It was Carlos Rodon. We had Rodon less than 30.5 fantasy points and Vlad Guerrero Jr. more than, I think it was like 7.5 fantasy points, something like that. Vlad had an RBI double and a run scored in the first inning. That was done. Rodon gave up 5 runs in the first, ended up giving up 8 total. Still won a full 5, but that was a very easy hit on that pairing. Vlad ended up with like 20-some fantasy points. But that's the sort of thing we're looking for. So, yes, I see Michael King, his outs. But that's a tough one because Michael King's a really good pitcher, so I don't really want to attack him with any Boston hitters. We could go to Reese Olson. Same concept, although this time it's that I just don't really like any of the Angels hitters, so I don't want to use those guys. Aaron Nola, same idea. Don't want to attack Nola, nor do I want to use many Marlins hitters. San Diego against Houck. That's the first place that we could go to, and we'll get there in a moment. But actually, the first one that caught my eye was Houston up against Tyler McGill. So put McGill in here. You see that we do have a nice 64% chance on this pick. So now the obvious place to go to is Astros. I want to find an Astros hitter that correlates well with this McGill less than play. Fantasy points. We've got Altuve and Yordan Alvarez. Notice we only have Altuve projected for 7.3, so we actually like the less than on him. So we could try Yordan, but that's only 44%. We do get a nice 4.7 percentage point correlation bonus, but only 44% on Yordan Alvarez. So this is about 33% solid, but we can do better. We can go to hits plus run plus RBI, and here Pena is the best. He's at 1.6, so that's also going to be a really bad one. So toss this one out the window. If there weren't any other options, I'd say, all right, guess I'm not using a pairing today. Guess it's an Underdog day. That's not the case, though. We do have that other option. As I mentioned, we have Tanner Houck less than 18.5. So he has to go into the 7th and record an out in the 7th inning. He's only done that 7 out of 16 starts this year, and the Padres are a tough team to do that against. They've got 9 pretty solid hitters in the lineup, even with Tatis out. They work counts. They don't strike out a ton. It's a tough lineup to get through. And in fact, if you look, because this is a key number, this 18.5 is a really key number, even though we only have him for a little bit more than one fewer out than that, this is still a 68.9% play. So this is a really strong one to start, particularly if we can find a Padre that we like. Profar is the best at the hits plus run plus RBI. Still a huge step up from anything we were getting on Houston at 54.8%. Also an incredible 6.4 percentage point boost. But we can even do better than that. Going to fantasy points, Luis Arias over 1.5 fantasy points ahead in our projection relative to PrizePicks projection, 60%. 5.4 percentage point boost gets this combination all the way to 46.7%. When you think about what the Padres have to do to keep Houck under or at 6 innings pitched, the answer is get on base, right? It doesn't matter if they hit a little single or a home run, solo homer. Getting on base makes Houck work more. Nobody gets on base better, maybe even in the entire major leagues, than Luis Arias. So really like this one. You can see how good this pick is individually. And of course, as a pairing, it works phenomenally well too. So love these two as a start. And then I'm actually going to go, you know what, we can go back to the main page here, and you'll see another one that comes up, outs. One thing you'll notice, if you go to the outs page, we show far more edges on less than plays than more than plays. So part of that is just the distribution of outs, but part of it too could be, at least in theory, that maybe we are underestimating guys and how far into games they can go. So when we see a more than suggestion, especially near the top, we want to listen to that one. Lorenzen has gone more than 5 1/3, which is what we're asking here, in 10 of 13 starts. He's gone at least 6 in well over half of his starts as well. We've got this one way, way up there in win probability. I want to say it was 72.7% if I recall correctly. Let's see. Hopefully it'll load in here shortly. Can't even get rid of it and come back in. There's a little bit of a concern with matchup here, but honestly, he has gone at least 5 1/3 against some really strong offenses, going 6, going 7 innings. They give him a pretty long leash. And part of it too is he pitches to contact a lot better than he gets strikeouts, right? So he's not having that like 4-inning, no run performance, but wait a minute, he's already at 80 pitches because he's struck out 7 and he's working deep counts. He's pitching to contact. He just doesn't give up a ton of rough contact. And like we talked about with Houck, it kind of doesn't matter if you give up a single or a home run. When the goal is to get to 15.5 outs, if he gives up 3 solo shots to these power hitters on Baltimore, so be it. That's not really going to affect his chances of throwing 5 1/3 innings. So 74.5%. This is just a phenomenal start. This trio, we have it 34.5%. That's absolutely incredible. No, we don't want to play it as a 3-pick play because the 3-pick payouts just stink on PrizePicks, but we can absolutely use it as a foundation for 6-pick plays. So to recap real quick, we've got this Houck less than 18.5 outs plus Arias more than 6.5 fantasy points pairing. We're going to go then to Michael Lorenzen, more than 15.5 outs. And then the 3 WNBA plays provided to me by Zach. Shout out Zach once again. Aja Wilson, less than 54.5 fantasy points. Diggins Smith, more than 29.5 fantasy points. And please don't make me try to pronounce this last name. Less than 36 fantasy points on, I'm going to guess, Aguamike. Don't know for sure. That's my guess of how to pronounce that. Less than 36.0 fantasy points. I don't even feel the need to look into those. It's not like any research that I can do in half an hour. Even if I spent the next 10 hours researching WNBA, I'm not going to have a better estimate than what Zach does. So when Zach gives these plays, I just blindly tail them. Kind of like he does on my PGA plays. So from there, that's our 6-pick play, by the way. We've got all 3 of these WNBA plays with the 3 MLB plays we've already talked about. Those were just put up on screen once again. If you want to do more than that, I do have an extra MLB play I like and an extra PGA play I like. Particularly, these could come in use potentially on Underdog or Boom Fantasy. But the place I'll start here, Bryce Wilson more than 25.5 fantasy points. This is one of the top recommendations in the tool. In fact, it is the top recommendation in the tool. We've got him projected at 30.5, 68.9%. So even though it's top rating, it's not the highest probability. Lorenzen, 74.5%, obviously better. Equivalent to Tanner Houck's 68.9% on the less than 18.5 outs as well. I was a little bit hesitant here because Miller hasn't been the greatest, and mostly because Minnesota has been spectacular offensively. But even though Miller hasn't been the greatest, all of his stuff looks great. And he had a couple rough starts recently, but he had like a 7-inning masterpiece recently. So recent form, pretty solid. Most of all, though, I'm just trusting the tool, and then also the implied run total for Minnesota, even as hot as they've been. So like you could craft in your mind a narrative that, okay, maybe our model is underestimating just how good this Minnesota offense has been lately. Well, in that case, we wouldn't expect an implied run total of just 3.75 for them. So the fact that the implied run total is low, Miller can be a strikeout pitcher, and 25.5 is a really low number for a pitcher of his caliber. I really like this one. Going to trust the tool. I don't think it's quite 69%. I think it's probably more like 60, 61, 62, something like that. But that is plenty good to fill out a 6-pick play. So very much in favor of that one. And from there, I'm going to go to PrizePicks. Frankly, I don't know if this one's still up. He hasn't teed off yet, but they had delays. So there's a chance that PrizePicks just locked this one a little bit early. Nope, it's still there. Less than 69.5 strokes on Ben Griffin. PJ's a little bit tough on these strokes. As I talked about last time, one of the things that I like to do is just kind of get a ballpark for where they're pricing everybody and then figure out, number one, are they pricing people correctly? Like, are these stroke totals fair or are they all off? As a whole, I think they're pretty fair. It's a par 72, so you're asking if you're going to go less on Patia, you're asking them to shoot 4 under. Very solid round. The course played about 2 under par yesterday. Obviously, a bunch of guys missed the cut, so you're going to expect the course average to be similar to that, maybe even a little bit better today. Plus, these guys are the best in the field, so that seems fair. You also got a ton of rain. The golf course is going to be crazy soft. Could make it play easier. If there are a bunch of back pins, it could even potentially make it play harder. You never really know. So what I wanted to do was just find a guy who isn't priced correctly relative to everybody else. You see guys like Maverick McNeely, 69, Cam Davis, 69.0, Fowler, 69.0. Then you look at the guys who are 69.5, Troy Merritt, Taylor Montgomery, Neil Shipley. Ben Griffin is a better player than most of those guys at 69, at least better than some of those guys at 69.0. He's a great course fit, certainly a better player than everybody else at 69.5. So I think that's a clear misprice, which is why I like his less than. And let's see. We don't have any comments yet. If you guys have questions, if you want to hear more about either the Underdog or PrizePicks process, if you want any Underdog plays today, if you've got something there that you want me to look at or anything on PrizePicks, just drop those in the YouTube chat. Those help a ton. Otherwise, we'll just kind of keep motoring through all of this good stuff. On PrizePicks, of course, we don't really like to build out full PGA plays. Number one, we got to get to 6-pick plays for a PrizePick play to even be solid. So that's a big obstacle. But then, of course, 2, they just kill us the way they penalize correlation. So, for example, a typical 3-pick play, 5x payout, drops to 4.75x here. And I'm in Florida right now, so I can only do this arena stuff. 8.5x if you go to 4. That's not what we're looking for, right? And if you go to a 6-pick play and did all of that, it might be like 13x or something if you tried to correlate everything. Even if you go less than, more than, I can only do 4 here. On Underdog, that would turn into like a 30x because they're saying, okay, you've got, you're betting on golfers here, you're betting against golfers there. That's inverse correlation will boost you up to 30x. On PrizePicks, they say, well, the 3 that you're betting on are correlated. The 3 that you're betting against are correlated. So we're just going to slash your odds, and it goes down to like 13x. So again, you guys have probably heard it, but if you haven't, play PGA on Underdog, not PrizePicks. That's a very easy answer. But we can, of course, use these one-off plays like Ben Griffin today, his strokes. With that, we've got a 6-pick play. We've got a couple others. I see no comments, so we'll call this stream early. We'll be back on Monday. I believe it'll be Zach. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.